You're tuning in to the Black Hollywood Live Network, featuring news, interviews, and commentary on all things Black Hollywood. Hollywood redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is Black Hollywood Live, Portraits, featuring intimate, in-depth interviews with Black Hollywood stars and influencers. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host for Black Hollywood Live, Portraits, Daryl Kristen.
Hey everyone, you're watching Black Hollywood Live Portraits. I am your host, Daryl Kristen. Here joining me today is DJ Justy J.
What up?
Courtney Stewart.
Hello, everybody.
And our very special guest that we're excited about, he is known as one of the most profitable and bankable producers in Hollywood.
Yes, yes.
Will Packer is with us today.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, man, it's glad to be here. I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you for joining
Excited
us.
to have you here. Yeah.
You are a busy man. I know you've been doing a lot of press this week for The Wedding Ringer
That's
with Kevin
right.
Hart. We're excited to see it. It's premiering January 16th, so
That's
everybody
right.
go check that out.
That's right.
Go.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Go get it. That's
Go get
right.
it. Opening night and all weekend.
You know it.
Now, you are the man because I just read that you have 7 films that have been #1 at the Blockbuster.
Crazy.
the
When you
opening
say it out
weekend.
loud, it just sounds
I mean,
insane. It's-
is there anybody who even competes with that record?
like, where
Yeah,
did
well,
that-
what I try to do is keep my eye on the future and not, you get too caught up in your laurels and accolades from the past, and that's where you'll end. You get stagnant. So I like to keep my eye going forward. But every now and then I do take a breath and look and say, wow, what a great track record. But what that means is that I've got a great team and I've got a lot of support and that people have come out and supported my films and enjoyed them. But yeah, man, 7.
7.
7
That's-
#1s. Crazy.
That's
yeah.
a lucky
That's a
number.
magic
Lucky
touch.
number 7.
How
That
many
is
you
a
got
magic
on bootleg?
I don't have any
That
on
was a trick
bootleg
question.
because
I like that you looked at her.
You see her? She almost
I don't
answered
eat
for real.
anything.
She did.
I
She
don't.
almost
You almost
said,
got her. You
I
almost
I
got
got
don't
wet
eat.
ring
I
in
was
my
like,
purse
wait,
right now.
No, I support the artist community. I do not buy bootlegs.
We appreciate that.
I promise you I
Thank
don't.
you. Yes.
I'm not-
Because you're
Yeah,
one of
I'm like,
us.
sure.
So,
I'm glad he looked at
Hey,
you.
I want to be paid when I'm acting too, so I am
There you
not
go.
getting it on bootleg.
All right,
Thank
good,
you.
good.
That's right. That's right. Well, The
feel
Wedding
like
Ringer, like we said, comes out next week, and this is you working with Kevin Hart again.
It is,
You guys
yeah.
seem to be like the dynamic duo.
yeah, we on a little bit of a roll. We've had a good run, and people enjoying. Look, Kevin's great. He's having a moment right now. He's been around for a while. People act like he's new, but Kevin's not new to this. He's been around
Been
for a
working.
while. No,
Yeah.
definitely. But he's a hustler.
Yeah.
He's one of those that's like, whatever it takes, he's going to make it happen. He's tireless. He's, somebody that the reason we work so well together is because we have similar work ethics.
Yeah.
And you got to have that drive and that motor to never slow down. But he's also insanely funny. I mean, he really is, this film, Wedding Ringer, it's cool because it's him doing something he hasn't done yet. It's really him in a really true leading man role.
Yeah.
And not in the romantic sense so much, but he's the puppet master. He's the one that's controlling this group of crazy, zany guys. And usually he's one of the crazy, zany guys. But he's the person that's overseeing it all. It's different for him, but people are saying it's his best performance yet.
Really?
Yeah,
Yay.
they really are.
And is it hard to watch him? Because I feel like I would be laughing the entire time on
You
set.
would.
I would
Oh,
never
you
have
would.
a moment where I
Trust
could just
me.
not be laughing with
I
him.
still, as I've made, I don't know how many movies with him now, 6 maybe, but I still will mess up a take if it's that good. Laughing out loud. It's funny, man, and he's very, very natural and quick and spontaneous. So you got to be ready.
Yeah.
He keeps his actors, his co-stars, on their
On their
toes.
toes, yeah.
Absolutely.
Now,
How
you're
did you
from-
guys? How did that relationship come about to begin with?
You know what? Kev and I met at an airport. Like, I knew, being in the industry, you guys know how it is. It's so small. So I'd been around him. I'd been like at a poker game with him, but I never like really talked to him or knew him. And he was doing a stand-up tour, and I saw him at LAX. And I just went up to him and said, yo, this is who I am. This is what I made. He said, oh, yeah, I enjoy your stuff. I said, man, I'd love to just sit down with you sometime. I didn't even necessarily have a project at that time. I was just being me, which is, approaching talent.
Yeah.
And he was very accessible. He was awesome. And we exchanged information. And then on his next tour, I was preparing to produce Think Like a Man. And so I flew down to Dallas to meet with him. and he had a show, and then we went, and it was crazy because he had his show in Dallas. He invited me to come down, and we like hung out that night and just party, no business, just kicking it. And we had a breakfast meeting that next morning, and I was like, I'm gonna see if he gets up, after kicking it all night to do his breakfast meeting.
Go to work.
He was right on time.
He was there.
He got up, and we sat there and had like the hungover eggs, steak and eggs breakfast. But we talked business.
Yeah.
And we found out that we had a lot in common, and our commonality kind of drove the relationship. And then I went and saw his show in Memphis, Tennessee, and then I went to see it in LA. I wanted to see how he performed in various markets and how he interacted with different crowds and demos. And I saw him in LA, so I saw the show 3 times. So by then, I felt strong enough about his talent or my relationship with him to go to the studio and say, this is the guy. Because when I first was talking to people in Hollywood about Kevin Hart, there was no, oh, great, Kevin Hart. There was we know Kevin Hart.
Right.
He's been around. He's not a leading man. He had his chance. He had a pilot. He had a movie. There wasn't excitement about him. But it wasn't until I really, really campaigned and championed for him to be in Think Like a Man, and that movie came out and was a surprise hit, surprised everybody else. That's what really put him on the map in terms of a Hollywood perspective.
What inspires you as far as coming from Kevin, as far as working with him in so many movies? Is it that you are inspired by him as an actor, that you find a role or you create a role for him, or that as you're working on these projects you're thinking, wait, I have the perfect guy? Is it just that comes off every time?
It works both ways. It works both ways. Sometimes it's about, because I know his talent and skill set, it's about when I read projects, I immediately will think of him because I know it's something that's tailor-made for his skill set.
Right. And
And then other times it is about developing things around him, developing things because I know either his sensibility or I know something he wants to do. And so it really works both ways.
Is that what came
Wedding Ringer was a project that was already in existence and wasn't written for Kevin. And it was a little bit different than what he had done, like I mentioned, but I knew with his skill set, he could do it. He could kill it. But then there have been other projects like the character in Think Like a Man was totally designed for Kevin, with Kevin Hart in mind.
And is he one of those people that you just let him roll with improv? Because I feel like he has a scene that he has a particular dialogue, and then you just let him roll. And you
A
just
good
keep
director
taping.
will.
Yeah.
A good director will know how to let him be him and keep the reins on him. You got to keep him within a certain box just to tell your story, to make sure the narrative moves forward. But a good director knows how to let him be him and let him go and let him run for the betterment of the project.
Now, just from the business perspective, like you said, he had already been around for a while, and they weren't hype about him at all. What is it that you feel like you were able to capitalize on or see in him from a business perspective in Hollywood that they didn't get or that it didn't quite communicate with before?
You know what? As a producer, I have to be able to have an eye for talent. That's just part of my job. That's just, if you're going to be a successful producer, you need to be able, whether it's somebody that's, got a fan base and a following or not, you have to be able to say, you know what, that's talent. That's somebody I want to work with. So I definitely saw that in him. I saw how he was building a really strong fan base through social media, which I've always been very in tune with, and how even though in the Hollywood side, it hadn't translated to a box office hit at that point, it translated to, like we were joking, but a whole lot of bootleg DVDs.
Right.
And you know what that means? That means there's a real appetite for them out
true.
there.
That
It
is true.
translated into a whole lot of Twitter followers.
Yeah.
That means there are a lot of people that, are aware of you and interested in you. So it made sense. But that's part of what, a good producer should do.
And then I know you can't reveal too much about the film as far as like scenes, but
I'll tell you everything.
what was
I will
one of your
tell you.
favorite scenes in the movie that we can expect to see?
You know what? There's a scene where the guys, which is Kevin and Josh Gad and all these groomsmen, because the theme of the movie is that Kevin Hart runs a company, and if you are getting married and you don't have a groomsman, you don't have any friends, you don't have a best man, you hire Kevin. And he puts the whole fake existence together, and you can look cool at your wedding. So he and all these fake groomsmen that he has brought together for Josh Gad have to play pickup sandlot football game against the father-in-law, the father of the bride. And the father of the bride's got all these old timers. And the young guys, of course, think they're just going to run these guys over. Where the old timers happen to be Ed Too Tall Jones, John Riggins, Joe Namath. They're like real stud athletes they had to play against. So we actually got to film a football scene between those two groups. It was super fun. It was in the mud. It's raining. The guys are talking trash. It was fun. It's a very fun scene.
And then you seem to always have a lot of diversity in your films. I mean, from the beginning, I know that I read that you wanted to focus more on like African American films and casting African Americans, but you also seem to bring out a lot of diversity in your films. Is that something that's important to you as you are creating these projects?
I just want my films to be real and authentic. I don't want to make an all white film. I don't want to make an all black film. I don't want to make an all Asian, all Latino. I want it to really feel like the world as much as possible. I'm, proud of the fact and not shy that my films, feature African Americans, but most times the characters just happen to be African Americans. It's not about like something that's specific to African American culture or something that's like so ethnically specific that it feels exclusionary to other audiences, So, and I like that as well.
And then now you're originally from St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yeah, man, St. Pete.
Went to
Absolutely.
Florida A&M.
Whoop, whoop. St. Pete in the house. All right.
Florida A&M University.
FAMU, absolutely. Did you know K. Michelle went to FAMU?
I did not know K. Michelle.
Did you know that?
I bet you they knew, actually.
Really?
I love K.
I bring that up because a lot of great people went to FAMU, but I just recently found that out. Yes.
And
Common went to FAMU.
Keith Cleese
went to Anika Noni Rose, very talented sister. She went to FAMU.
There is a
FAMU
lot
is
of
rocking.
talent
Yes.
from FAMU.
Yes, did I forget anybody? Looking over at my publicist off screen
anymore
to see if she's a big K.
The list
Michelle
goes on
fan,
and on,
so
right?
she's always reminding me about K. Michelle going to Anyway.
What I found interesting.
What's up,
is
K.
you were-
Michelle?
K.
Hey, girl.
Michelle in the house. We give
That's
you a
right.
shout out.
Give you a
Come
shout.
on, Black Hollywood Live.
That's right.
What I found interesting is that you're an engineer major.
Yes.
So how did you transition into knowing that you wanted to be in film from being an engineer major?
That's a good question, man. You know what? I went to FAMU on an engineering scholarship. My dad was an engineer. I always knew that I did not want to be an engineer, but that was my path to getting into college and not getting in, but getting a scholarship. And along the way, I met a guy, Rob Hardy, super talented filmmaker, and together we made our first movie while we were students at FAMU. So while I was in engineering, studying, doing well, making my grades, I always say that it's important no matter where you are, even if it's not where you want to be in life, to give 110% at that moment, because you never know, number one, who's watching, you never know, number two, what you may learn, number three, where it may lead. Number four, you can't just start trying to be great at the flip of a switch. That takes practice. Like, you need to always be somebody that gives 110% so that when you do find your passion, when you do say, okay, I'm doing now what I want to do, you're used to already working hard.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was in engineering school, and my plan was to leave FAMU and then go and get my MBA because I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what kind of entrepreneur. And we made our first film just as two college kids having fun with cameras. We didn't know what we were doing, really. And it was called Chocolate City, and it was a movie about college life as we knew it. And we hustled that movie and made a little money with it because we independently distributed. And we made Chocolate City t-shirts and hats, and we sold them. And then, we had a Chocolate City soundtrack. Everybody in college is a poet or a singer or a rapper.
That's true.
We put them all on soundtrack. We sold that, And then we went to the second run theater and talked them into letting us run the movie. And they did, and we got all the kids to come and made money that way. So by the end of the day, we had actually made a little bit of money. And I said, you know what? This is my entrepreneur endeavor right here. I didn't know at the time that getting the actors, finding the financing for the movie, helping distribute the movie, marketing the movie, I didn't know that's what a producer did.
Right.
But ultimately, that's now what I'm doing because it started off as just, some college buddies going after a dream.
But where did that spark come from? Was there something before, in high school, that kind of made you think that direction, or was it just one night you guys were like, want to try something out?
You know what? I have to say that for me, the drive was always to be in business and always to work for myself and always to be an entrepreneur. And the drive for Rob was to be a filmmaker. So I have to say that he was the one that said, I want to be a director. At that time, he was influenced by Spike Lee. the Hughes brothers. He wanted to be, that next, John Singleton. And so I was helping him. And so along the way, I found my passion as a creative business person, and he found his as a filmmaker.
And it's funny that you say 110% because as far as being an engineer in engineering school, how has that helped you with your career, or as far as the little pieces in your life of all come together to...
No, that's a good question. Because people say, well, you're not using your engineering degree, but on the contrary, an engineering degree forces you to think analytically. Mm-hmm. That's really what it's about. It's about problem solving in an analytical way when you break it down to its purest form. And I still use that analytical mind in my day-to-day as a movie producer. Mm-hmm. I will approach a problem or a challenge, whatever it may be, in this very, very creative industry in an analytical way, and I think it gives me a leg up.
And you had mentioned it's like financing, which is key with producing and producing your projects. I know you worked with Warrington Hudlin, and I think I saw that he was a lot of inspiration for you to figure out how to do financing, and that's really key in this business.
Yeah.
What were some of the obstacles that you had at the beginning that, when you were trying to get these films put out, that you felt you needed to kind of share with people, or you like to share with people as they're trying to figure out the same thing with producing?
A lot of filmmakers encounter the same common obstacles, which are financing and distribution. And it's so hard to get financing without distribution, but it's almost impossible to get distribution without financing. What do you do? Right. So, but you got to start somewhere. And I remember Warrington Hudlin, who the first internship I had in the industry was on a movie that he and his brother Reggie did, and it was for Miramax, and the movie was called Ride. And I was just out of college, and I had done that movie with Rob. It was called Chocolate City. And I remember showing Warrington my movie, Chocolate City, and saying, I'm a filmmaker. I want to be where you are. I want to make movies. I made this movie when I was in school. And he said, you know what? You're already ahead of the game. He said, so many people in this industry are always talking about what they're going to do. They're always talking about what they're about to be. They're always talking about where they think they want to go. But very few are actually doing it. The fact that you have this movie, and he held it up. He said, this movie is probably terrible. And it actually was. But point was, he said, the fact that you have it, that you have a movie, puts you ahead of the game. And I took that to heart. And I was like, you know what? That's the key. Do it. Just go out and do it. If you don't have the big Hollywood budget or the big Hollywood star, shoot something. Show somebody that you're serious and that you're not just a talker.
And it's so inspiring to hear you say we, went down to the local movie theater. We, we're distributing ourselves.
Yeah.
And that was before an age of social media where now people are just starting to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can distribute it on my own. Yeah. So that's
amazing. Opportunities now are crazy in comparison. You can shoot a movie on an iPhone and edit it and have it online in the same day.
Right.
Like, we had to buy the film. We had to go and figure out how to cut the film. Like, it was a whole nother process. And then, to get people to go see it, it wasn't, back then, email wasn't prevalent. You had to go, you had to call people, you had to,
you had to buy cousins and aunties.
Page them and let them call you back. You beep them 911. No, what happened? I need you to see my movie. You said 911, it is 911. I mean, it was a whole thing to try to get the word out back then. We were handing out flyers on campus.
Yeah.
Now, you can sit home and send an email. So it's good because it's level the playing field, and it's made access easier and made additional entry points for people. But it also means that there are a lot more people doing it. There weren't many people.
True.
We were the only people back then at FAMU that were serious about making a movie. Now at any college across the country, there's 1,000, startup directors. But what it means, you got to be that much better. You got to be somebody that now figures out how to make your work stand out.
And also filter through the people who are still doing what you were doing and not just sticking online. And because technology, I've noticed, like you said, there's more of it, but it's a lot of watered down productions, and I think it's due to laziness.
Yeah, I hear you.
Technology.
I hear you.
So
Yep.
that's stand up of you for going through all
Yeah,
that.
thank you, bro.
Basically, you were the Master P of
Master,
film.
yeah.
You were the Master P of film.
Very
Guerrilla
early.
styled it all the way
I
out.
tell you what's funny is that he was an inspiration for us early on, because that's back during the Master P days.
Yeah.
And so after we made our first movie, we then moved to Atlanta, and we made our second movie. And Master P had made all this noise for selling his own records out of the trunk of his car and going and taking it directly to the people. And we took that same approach with film. And we had, our next movie was called Toi. And it was an erotic thriller. And we had this
One of my
little movie.
favorites.
We've all
God
seen
bless
it.
that
We've all
man.
seen it.
Turn up.
I actually
All right
watched it
then.
last week, I
There
must
you
admit.
go. Hey,
used to play
all
that in
right.
college
And
too.
part 2.
Yeah, and we took it to the people. We literally drove. We rented a Ford Excursion. They don't even make those anymore.
Wow. Yeah, I
We
was
rented
like,
this
do they
big
make those?
gas guzzling truck. We filled it up with flyers, and we wrapped the side of it like the rappers were doing back then, and put our movie logo and the film logo on the side. And we drove to every city that we convinced to show our movie in the theater. And so, I mean, I remember it was Atlanta to Jackson, Mississippi, Nashville, Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, Charlotte, North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina. Like, I remember the markets. They were primarily southeastern markets. The furthest north we went was Chicago, and we went there because there was a theater that agreed to show it. There was a black theater ownership group, and they had a first-run movie theater, and they let us show our film there, so we went to Chicago. But other than that, it was a lot of small southeastern markets.
Why did you guys end up in Atlanta instead of LA or New York?
That's a great question, and people ask me all the time about like how important it is to be in a particular market, right? So when we graduated from FAMU, we were trying to figure out where to go, and we talked about like we want to try to make a run at this filmmaking thing. Well, you got to go to LA, and we say, well, or New York. There's also an opportunity there, and we looked at them and we said, you know what? Those are really big ponds. And we would be yet another small fish in a big pond. And we said, but Atlanta at the time, and it still is, but then the music industry in Atlanta was just starting to
Huge,
burgeon.
yeah.
It was popping. That's back in the days of,
TLC
Outkast,
and
TLC,
Babyface,
LaFace Records,
yeah.
and Organized Noise. Jermaine Dupri was coming up.
Yeah.
Usher had just that was when Atlanta and the hip hop R&B music scene was really just starting to pop. Dallas Austin was on the map. And so we said, you know what? We'll move to Atlanta. We'll then be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, right? Because there's not as many filmmakers in Atlanta, and we can do music videos. We can eat off the music industry that's there until we can get the film thing going. It was a good idea. We moved to Atlanta. Do you know that we did not get one music video? Nobody would hire us. Nobody. So our plan, while fortuitous, didn't work the way we thought it was going to work because the industry was kind of locked up. There were all these guys that were already doing music videos, and that's who all
Everybody
the guys
went to.
went to the same guy.
Yeah.
They went to the same 5 companies. And we were these new guys out of Tallahassee, Florida, and they were like, no, we're hiring blah, 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 because he just did the Lil Jon video. He just did the Outkast video. He just did the Monica video. And we were just these new guys. And we could not break in. We never got one music video. But thank goodness we didn't because it kept us hungry.
Yeah.
And it made us then independently produce our next movie.
What did y'all do in the meantime to eat and keep going?
That's another story. But you know what?
We got time. We got time.
It was I delivered newspapers. I would get up at 3 a.m. because we wanted jobs that wouldn't infringe on our film hustle.
Yeah.
So I would get up at 3 a.m, pack my little Honda Civic with newspapers, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the AJC. I would get them in, and you have to roll your own newspapers. A lot of people don't know that. It's not like, at least
I
then,
didn't
it
know
wasn't a machine that, no. You get up in the morning. So you get up at 3. You have to go to work, be at work around 3:30. You have to get your newspaper. So you got to deliver 1,500 newspapers. You got to take each paper, roll it up, stick it in the bag. If it's raining, you got to double bag it. You got to put it in one bag, put it in the other bag, whatever. You get your basket, you fill them up, you roll up 1,500 paper. That's an hour. Yeah. Now you go out to your car, load your car. Now you get out and drive. It's 4:35 a.m. now. So, and you got to have them delivered by 6:30. So it's a whole thing. But what it allowed me to do was during the day, I was free. I could be on the phone. I could be making calls. I could be calling people in LA and acting like, I had this big office that I was running in Atlanta. So yeah, and then Rob temped. He was a temp. He would just, do these odd jobs here and there. I sold stuff door to door, and that sales kind of still helps me now, honestly, because I'm still selling.
Still selling films?
Still selling, yeah.
How did you guys approach the second movie differently than the first time when you guys were just kind of playing around in college? Moving to Atlanta, what was kind of your mindset as far as working on the next film?
There were a lot of similarities, actually, in our approach. And what's weird is that there are a lot of similarities still.
Really?
Even though that first movie, Chocolate City, was like, barely $20,000, and Wedding Ringer is a whole lot more. The approach is not that dissimilar. It's about making a good movie and then getting the word out, getting people to want to go see it. So with that first movie, we convinced one theater to show it in our little college town, and then we did everything we could to pack that one theater. With the second movie, we got like 19 theaters in 19 different markets. That was when we drove market to market. We did the same thing. We convinced each of those theater owners to let us show it, and then we did everything we could to pack each one of those theaters. On a larger scale, that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. The hustle doesn't change, It doesn't stop. It just adjusts. It just evolves.
And then after you did Toi and you had such a huge success, I know you got a development deal with Columbia TriStar after that, I believe. And then how did your life change? I mean, you went from, distributing these smaller films into now the big studios are looking at you and want to do development deals with you. How did that life change for you? Because I know you were also known as the new power brokers in Hollywood. You guys were the man. So how did the life
it's weird, and I know, a lot of people watch this show that are, aspiring, right? And that want to, direct, produce, act, write. And a lot of people think, like I thought, that there's like just that one moment, and then when you hit that one moment, you're done. Like, that's it. Like, you made it, It's more of a progression. It's more of a gradual progression. So it wasn't like just that one. There were multiple moments that were definitely extremely instrumental and pivotal in my career. But how did the lifestyle change? It's hard to say. It's just gradually, the budgets got bigger and bigger, and my first major Hollywood success was probably Stomp the Yard.
Stomp the Yard, yeah.
My first kind of big indie success was probably a movie called The Gospel, because we made that for $3 million. It made like 15 to 16, so that was a great profit margin. But that allowed us to make Stomp the Yard, and Stomp the Yard allowed us to make Think Like a Man. Yeah. So each one leads to a different level, So I would just say that to people that are watching, that it's a progression. It's not just like you wake up one day, It's not like hitting the lottery. It's a lot of hard work, and over time, you can get to where you want to go if you're persistent enough and you don't give up.
And you seem very consistent with that lifestyle. Is that something that your family installed in you? Because as an entrepreneur, it gets hard when you're working those 5 jobs and you're late at night and you're like trying to be creative, but you've been mailing papers, working at the grocery store all day. And then you get in that mode of, you can't, it's hard to connect with people because you're trying to be in this creative place. And for you, how do you get out of that space of no, if you get all those no's, how do you get out of that space of this is what I'm supposed to be doing, even though I'm not getting this distributor deal, I'm going to do it myself. How do you personally?
That's a good question, and like I said, I know a lot of people watching can relate to it, because it feels like sometimes, what am I doing? And I had a lot of those moments, like, what the hell is going on? Like, this makes no sense. And I had an engineering degree. Like, I have an engineering degree. I mean, these ramen noodles. I'm getting up every morning. I'm calling people who will never call me back. I didn't even live in LA. So it was like, I can't even afford to get there, to go to their offices to stalk them.
Right.
I just, was doing the best I could from where I was. And there was just something in me. And something that you asked about family, and I definitely think it was instilled at a young age, that said, it's not over until I say it's over. And that's the truth. Because there were plenty of times I could have given up, because I couldn't get, the money we wanted to get even to make Trois. And then after that, I couldn't get another studio film. And then even after The Gospel, it took forever to make Stomp the Yard. And then, people didn't think Stomp the Yard was going to really work. And we walked Stomp the Yard around town. Everybody told us no. Everybody told us no with Stomp the Yard. And then we went back to Sony, and Sony said yes. And then it opened big. And then all the other studios said, you should have brought it to us. We would have made it. It's that kind of cliche Hollywood, once you're hot, everybody wants you kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you've worked with some of the hottest African American talent, from Taraji all the way down to Beyonce.
Yeah.
Who has been some of your favorite people to work with, actually, and who would you like to work with that you haven't yet that you maybe want to put in a film?
Man, Kev is great. Love his work ethic. Idris Elba, one of my best friends in the business. Super talented.
Yeah.
Beyonce. I mean, it's been said a million times, making $1 million. She is the queen for a reason. She works hard. Like, that was one thing that being on set with her for the movie we made together was so apparent, was that if she's into a project, she's in 110%. She goes hard. So I enjoyed that. And then, I mean, my Thing Like a Man cast is so amazing. I love those guys. I'd make every movie with them if I could. They're just, Taraji, Regina Gab, Michael Ealy, Terrence J, and Lala are two actors that are like coming up that I don't think I know are ones to watch. I love Megan Good. I mean, that cast is great. Gary Owen's very talented. He's somebody that I think, the industry is sleeping on a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, there's so many I'd love to work with, African American and not. But I haven't worked with Sam Jackson yet. We've talked. I haven't worked with Will or Denzel, but somebody like Michael B. Jordan, definitely want to work with him. Talented young brother. Yep. Definitely somebody that's on my radar for sure. Lupita. She's made a lot of noise this year, but she earned it. John Boyega, super talented. The Black Stormtrooper, who knew? Right?
Who knew?
Right?
And then another thing I've appreciated about your films is, like with Obsessed and also No Good Deed, is that you depict women in a strong format. And is that something consciously that you wanted to do, or is it just kind of how the script unfolded?
You know what? It's two things. Number one, it's just who I am, because I have a great respect for women, especially African American women, because my mama raised me right. So I know, their power, and I know from whence my strength comes, right? The other thing is that there's such a huge, just from the business side, there's such a huge, important audience, and an audience that for a very long time Hollywood ignored. Mm-hmm. And so every film I make, I have a component with an eye towards women, and especially African American women, because they are a monster demographic. They are tastemakers, they are influencers, they are loud, and I mean that in a persuasive kind of way. Like, if, they're all watching Scandal on Thursday night, it, because it's trending.
Yeah. Don't look at Facebook if you don't want to find out what's going on.
Forget about it, Yeah. And that's just part of the culture, and so I would be remiss if I didn't, make content with that audience in mind.
And do you feel that now there's a shift in Hollywood where you've had such success? I mean, you're known as the profitable producer. Do you feel that Hollywood executives and suits are paying more attention to black projects and making notice of that, and more willing to greenlight projects at this point?
Some are. I mean, you have to realize that, Hollywood still by and large is a tentpole business. And so, if you're making a tentpole, everybody has to go see it. Yeah. Black, white, brown, yellow, old, young, men, women, like you're making it for all the quadrants. But there are more financiers and distributors and studios that are open and interested in making movies for and about African Americans than before, because of the financial success of, some of the films like mine and others.
Well, in spite of like the financial success that you guys have all had, and there's been some great films that have come out, there's still, obviously, as we had the Sony hacking scandal and hearing this idea that a leading black person isn't bankable abroad, and that's why the lead actors aren't really coming out. And even you mentioning earlier that Kevin Hart's finally getting to be in a real leading man position,
right? But
perhaps not seen that way by the Hollywood as a whole. Do you think that, is it bull, or is it really just, or is there some some truth in what they're saying in terms of what their perspective is in terms of an international business market.
No, there's definitely truth, but I think you have to look at why. I think that, definitely films with African American leads have not historically performed on the level of films that their white counterparts have been in. But I think you have to look at why that is. And I think that it is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. Once you say something's a certain way, you contribute to it staying that way. But what I choose to do is look at the progression and how far we've come, because, be it The Equalizer or Ride Along, those movies are making more money internationally now than they would, even proportionately, 10 years ago.
Right.
So what that says to me is that the audience is growing for content that happens to feature people of color. And that's a good thing. And I think as the world is becoming more diverse, the studios are recognizing that you need to have some element of diversity for a film to feel authentic anywhere it wants to play.
And then you're also working on Straight Outta Compton, which I'm ecstatic about. I can't wait to see it.
It's going to be awesome.
What can you tell us about the movie as you're filming right now, and what can we expect to see in the film?
Well, the movie's wrapped, and it is some of F. Gary Gray's finest work. I'll tell you that. It is. It was a labor of love for he and Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, because, they all, obviously Cube and Dre lived it, but Gary lived it as well. He lived that time. He's from that world. And, for those guys, I'm so happy, because this is a film that was, a long time coming and wasn't an easy film to make, but people are really going to enjoy it. It's going to deliver what audiences are hoping and expecting, and so much more.
And is it going to be, we've had this discussion on our shows about some of the Lifetime movies that have depicted certain Aaliyah, no names, Aaliyah, in a certain light that we feel like we didn't really get the real story and the meat and the bones of the story. Will we get this in the movie?
No question. This is on a different level. This is real. I mean, and I think that, I know how hard it is to make content, so I am always encouraging of those that are making content. Because if you haven't made a movie, unless you're just admitting that you're just a consumer, just a fan, which you can be. And if you're just a fan, you can sit back behind your keyboard and say whatever you want in 140 characters. You have that right. But if you're claiming to be a filmmaker, unless you've made a film, I think you have to be careful about the judgment that you put on other people that are actually doing it.
True.
So, but that being said, what I will say is that I know there's some really, really important historical figures, like Aaliyah, who it would be great if they had a better platform, bigger platform, more resources devoted to the telling of their stories. Because I think, Aaliyah, Whitney, whoever, I think that these are great American stories. And I'm so glad that the NWA story is going to make it to the big screen and be in what I think is a proper platform for that telling.
Yeah. And then you've delved into the television side of things as well. You have Bounce TV, and I know that you have several projects that you're working on with NBC. What was the importance of you kind of transitioning from the big screen to the small screen and producing projects for that?
At the end of the day, it's content, right? Yeah. So you're still trying to make the best content, marketable content that audiences are going to relate to. But, TV's a different animal, and it's something I've wanted to do for a while. So I'm really, really excited about the opportunity to get my first show on the air and have people be able to engage week to week with characters that I have a hand in shaping. That's amazing. So, we had a great television development season. We got some projects we're really excited about, and this is the time of year when, the decisions are made about what's going to be on air in the fall. So I'm in the middle of that right now.
And I know that we've seen a lot of networks try and transition into filling the space of creating program for African Americans that they normally hadn't done before. We see VH1 doing it a lot now. I know that you're Greek, you're an Alpha.
Yeah.
And there is a new show on VH1 called Sorority Sisters.
Right.
Have you had a chance to see that? And if you have, what is your opinion on all of the uproar that is taking place around this show?
I put it quite simply. I haven't seen the show. And so I'm not going to speak specifically to the portrayals on that show. But I have made a decision based on, what I do know of the show and based on the fact that I'm a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, that my projects won't advertise on that show. So, you won't see a wedding ringer commercial on Sorority Sisters. So that's a decision that I made. I think that, they have a right to make the show, but consumers have the power. At the end of the day,
Very true.
If you sit there and watch a show and talk online about how terrible it is, all you did is tell somebody in an office that doesn't know you that that's popular. Because somebody walks in and says, oh, we trended all night. They were trending and they were talking about it and the ratings were strong. And they say, oh, let's do that again. People must like that, So you just have to kind of know that. And obviously there's a lot of negative sentiment out there about it. But, I haven't looked at the ratings. But if you're continuing to watch it, then you're telling this industry that that's the type of content they should make.
It's true. And then with reality TV as a whole, do you think that it is the demise of real good content nowadays?
It's not. No, it is. Here's the thing. I think that it's gonna be there. I think that it's not going anywhere. Because it is the economics of it make so much cheaper to shoot a reality show than a scripted show, and so many people like to watch the car crash element of it. I like to say car crash. It's terrible, but you can't stop.
You can't stop watching it, right?
But at the end of the day, I think that those of us that choose to play in a different arena, the challenge is on us to make something that's just as entertaining, just as provocative, just as edging, just as salacious, or not, but make something that people want to see. Because people have a choice. They have a right. They can say, look, I can watch the real blah, blah, blahs and blah, 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 or I can watch this show from Will Packer Productions.
Right.
I need to make sure my show can compete with that. And that's on me.
That's a good point.
And as far as competing, because it's interesting, we have this conversation a lot with reality TV. They look for that quick punch to get everybody's attention, which I feel over the years has kind of taken people's attention span away. So to watch these hour-long sitcoms, how do you compete with that as far as trying to lure that audience back to a smarter place?
You got to make it entertaining. It's definitely changed the landscape. Now, I'm not saying it hasn't affected it for sure, because well,
I guess without selling out, I guess that's the question.
I think you can make good content that's engaging and entertaining. A lot of people think Scandal is a good show, and a lot of people watch that show,
100%.
and it's scripted. It's Shonda, writes the hell out of that show every week. So, I think you can do it. I think it's like when we were talking earlier about digital media making it so everybody can make a movie now. And now everybody's got a movie. So your movie's got to be that much better. Now there is a lot of, cheaper, non-scripted,
scripted
shows.
reality.
Right, scripted reality, whatever.
Yeah.
Scripted reality.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Right.
And with
that's
all
the new thing.
That's
right?
the new thing. And with all the projects that you're working on, how do you go about picking what you're going to put your hands on? Because I'm sure you get stuff across your desk all day long.
I
How
get
do
a
you go
few.
about that?
Yeah. I get a little bit. You know what? It's about the sweet spot is critical and commercial success, right? If you can have something that's commercially viable, but at the same time is not just slop, just not just eyeballs for eyeballs' sake, says something. I always want with a piece of content from Will Packer that you feel something, whatever it is. I don't care if you laugh out loud or you are afraid or you hurt or you cry. Like I want it to have some impact. I don't want you to walk out of a movie or turn off a TV show and say, boy, I just wasted that hour,
Right.
So that's my goal.
What's your dream project to sort of see come to fruition?
You know what? I that's a fair question, but I don't know that I know it yet. I got a lot of dreams. I dream big. I do. I just, whether it's a biopic or whether it's a movie that can win an Oscar, I mean, there are a lot of stories out there, great stories yet to be told. I want to be in the mix of telling some really great stories. That's what I'll say.
And who are some of your inspirations in the industry, or even outside the industry?
You know what? I think my dad, for sure. I have to just go straight outside the industry because he just taught me so much about manhood and just about life. And so for me, the industry happens to be where I work, but it's not who I am. Like, I'm Will Packer. If I was a radio DJ or a corporate, VP, I wouldn't be a VP. I'd be the president.
I like
if
that.
I was,
I like
if
that.
I was
I
in
like
corporate
that.
America,
I like that.
I'd still be me. And so the lessons that I learned, they translate in any medium. About hard work and being upfront and being honest and keeping your relationships and treating people the right way. So I'd have to say he's my biggest inspiration.
How did your father take it, that transition from engineering to filmmaking?
You know what? He was cool. It was my mom that was nervous. My dad took the approach because I left college with a degree in electrical engineering and did not take a job. Just moved to Atlanta and, was sleeping on the couch. Like, it was like, I'm just going for it. And my mom was like, oh my gosh, what is he doing? You have a degree, to my dad, honey, are we going to let him do this? Are you okay with this? And my dad was like, he's smart enough. He won't let himself starve. He's got to go. Let him go. Let him do, and that was his approach. He was like, he won't let himself starve.
And you have a son in college.
I do, yeah.
Is he in filmmaking, taking after you?
He did an internship this last summer at Universal, which was great. Oh, wow. So we'll see. He's just a sophomore in college, so we still got to figure out, what it is. But he definitely, he's got me as an influence. So we'll see. But he's super talented. He's way more talented than I am. So we'll see. He can do anything.
Would you actually like him to be in the entertainment business? Because some people that are in it
some
aren't
people
keen on it for their kids.
You know what I feel for my kids? Because I have 4 kids total. And for any of them, I want them to follow their dreams and their passion. And I don't want it to be limited or dictated by my job, by my passion, by what I was successful in. I want them to go for it, whatever it is that they want to do.
And if you could use one word to describe your career, what would you use?
Amazing. Amazing. Because it has been. It's really been amazing, just with what we're talking about today. When you think about from, on the campus of, a college that didn't have a film school, to delivering those newspapers, to everybody saying no to Stomp the Yard, to sitting here with you guys and able to talk about 7 #1 movies.
7.
Amazing.
Powerful 7. Well, we're going to wrap up, but we will have like 5 quick personal questions, fun questions that we're going to ask you as we're kind of concluding the interview.
All right.
All right, first of all, what's your favorite song out right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm about to say something crazy. What part of the segment is?
You can say whatever.
Move That Dope. I would have to. That just came to mind.
I was not expecting that.
That was.
I didn't expect
That's
that.
not even new. But
I think we need a camera on your publicist.
Yeah.
I think that she might have just passed out.
Oh no, my publicist is ready for my career to be over. She doesn't want to. I was good the whole time. I gave good, succinct, coherent answers. Then you asked my favorite song. I went straight to the most ratchet, rap song.
Right, I was not expecting that answer, but I appreciate that answer.
I'm just look, it's better than something I could have gave Stacey or Collins Jackson.
All right, Justin, go ahead. I'm too busy laughing over the song.
If you could be stuck on an island with any actress, who would it be?
I'm engaged and I love my fiance dearly. So I don't know
so how about actor?
That might be worse.
That might be, yeah.
Any actress. That's such a weird question. Beyonce. I'm gonna say Beyonce because we could talk about the work ethic that she had.
That's right.
And our respect for
and Baby Blue. You can talk about Baby Blue and Baby Blue.
And she got to bring the baby.
She got to bring the baby.
There we go.
This is even better.
Oh boy. You didn't warn me about this part of the show. All right.
Would you hire Bill Cosby for a film?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I I.
From the pause, we may have the answer already, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have to qualify the answer, I think, a little bit. But, you know, it wouldn't, if I hired Bill Cosby for a film, it would be to make a statement right now. It would be to make a political statement to say that, in spite of it all, this is what I want to do. You don't hire Bill Cosby right now because you want to make a commercial film or because you want to make a film that people will come out and see. You hire him because you are trying to make a statement, because it's controversial, because you want to, you know, get attention somehow. Because I don't, so the answer is no, because I wouldn't do it just for that.
Right.
You know, and everything hasn't come out and there hasn't been any court case or anything like that, so I'm not in a position to pass judgment at all. But that question is actually easy because that'd be bad business right now.
Right.
That's not who you want to hire if you're trying to, you know.
Make any
Last
money.
question for you. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve is people who don't respect your time. And there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can do that by being late all the time. You know, like if you're late all the time, that just means that if I'm always late, your time is not as important as mine. Because we said 3 o'clock and I'm always getting there at 3:30, 3:45. That 30, 45 minutes, you didn't need it. That's disrespectful. The other thing is people who, you know, if we come and we meet and you know I'm busy and then, you know, you want to keep it going and we only got an hour and I have to like cut you off to say, listen, I got to go, you know, like I think that, and that's the other thing is I know, again, you have a lot of people who watch your show that are, you know, looking to get into the industry. When you know, you got to be persistent and you got to be a hustler and you got to be in people's face. I get all that. I've been that dude. You also do have to be respectful, you know. I get a lot of people that like come to me and, you know, and they put their hand on my shoulder and don't want to let go. You know what I mean? I got a lot of people that don't, you know, necessarily respect my personal space and allow me to, like, you know, move the way I move. Like, let me, you know, if you got something, let me give you an answer. Go through the proper channel. Everybody's got channels, you know. Like, what am I going to do really in this lounge, club,
Your
restaurant,
mindset's
concert?
not
What am I going to do right now? You know, but what you can do is say something that will spark and remind me that when you send the email to the right person, I'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember. There's some people that are like, this is my chance. I got Will Packer. He's going to greenlight my next movie. He's going to produce it. I'm not letting you go till you say yes. And that's a little...
That gets a little weird.
That ain't happening,
an awkward
brother.
moment.
Yeah,
So I
that's
guess we
that
won't
awkward
talk
moment.
after the interview then.
Well, thank you for joining us
No,
today.
you kidding me? This is
Portraits.
awesome.
Where can your fans find you on social media?
I'm easy. It's at Willpower Packer. That's me. At Willpower Packer on Twitter. At Willpower Packer on Instagram. Will Packer easily on Facebook. I'm out there. I'm on all that. Snapchat. I'm out there.
And I love on your Twitter how you used all of your movie titles.
Yeah.
Give
That
the
was dope.
description.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, congratulations for all your success. We're
Thank
looking
you.
forward to the wedding.
Thank y'all for
Right here,
having me.
January
I love it.
16th.
That's
Go
right.
check
Go
it
see
out.
it.
We
Check
will
it
be
out.
there.
That's
and,
right.
We'll see you soon.
I love it. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you. Good job. That was fun.
Producers Maria Menounos, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in. The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.